It appears that our mechanism of fear and anxiety will always walk beside us like an inseparable shadow. Yet the objects of our fear are mutating. For centuries, humanity fell victim to its own desires, their hunger for more, the trap of greed. But today, the modern con is no longer built on the architecture of desire. It is built on the architecture of fear. Look at the words that trigger us now: the state, the police, the investigation, the seizure, the bank. No modern deceiver can look into your eyes and say, "You have spoken ill of God. Give me your money to save your faith." Such words no longer strike terror into the modern heart. Why? Because in the human psyche, the state has grown powerful enough to become the new object of dread. It is an entity too distant to hold our hand, yet close enough to crush our lives. We are told that the laws and regulations enacted by the state are for our protection. Yet, by granting corporations the right to harvest and sell our data, the state has paved the way for our vulnerability. The sovereign holds the power to reshape the terrain beneath our feet, altering human behavior at will. Yet history struggles to remember a state decree that truly elevated society. We exist in a fragile paradox. The state must balance fear and trust. It must surrender some of its absolute power to foster safety. If this trauma continues for another century, the concept of the state will either dissolve into nothingness or bleed out its remaining strength. For when the human species is repeatedly traumatized by its objects of fear, it will strike the first dagger into that beast at the very first sight of an alternative. It will do whatever it takes to obliterate the source of its terror. We cannot conquer fear itself, but if we change how we look at the objects of our fear, a profound mutation occurs. Humanity guides its terrors through the beautiful lies it tells itself. When the majority embraces a lie, it hardens into reality. And we see now that the concept of God has become a fixed mechanism within our species, a structural framework born of necessity, directing us toward what we must fear. To numb the pain of this direction, we no longer rely on storytelling. Instead, we lay bare the cold reality of money. I do not claim that money is a god or a religion. I speak of money as a pure abstraction. There is a template of God burned into the human subconscious, and humanity, without hesitation, applies this template to anything that promises power. This is how hierarchies are born. This is how institutions are canonized and made sacred. Even when we look at a newly discovered galaxy in the deep cosmos, we interpret it through this very template. We do not replace God with money or objects. We build idols. We mimic the entire divine structure. We build its institutions, its temples. We crown its sorcerers. We await its miracles. And we map out its paradise within our minds. The bond between the concept of God and human fear is unbreakable. So is the bond between our idols and our will to power. Because we substitute power with these idols, their loss triggers a visceral, primitive trauma. The pupils dilate, the pulse quickens, the body tenses. In that exact moment, fear takes the wheel. Even the non-believer begins to whisper a desperate wish to the cosmos, praying that the worst will not happen. We seek power only over the objects we can control. But the moment control slips through our fingers, a different mechanism awakens in the subconscious. I'm not speaking of religion here, but of a pure, untamed concept of God preserved in our depths, the primal urge to wish, to beg a higher power when control is lost. Humanity is on an endless cyclical hunt for objects, events, and situations to substitute for power. We do this to feel safe, yet these tools do not keep us safe. They merely manufacture the illusion of safety. It is exactly like a solitary soul whistling a tune while walking through the dark. Every idol we create is just a whistle in the night, and yet the more we build, the more fragile we become. We substitute the things we can control for power, and the things we cannot control we substitute for fear. But underneath it all, the hunger for control remains absolute. The will to power and fear will never leave us. Both will eternally drag us into trouble. Perhaps we cannot destroy them, but we can find the courage to confront them. Perhaps Nietzsche was right. The will to power and fear are what was always inside us. True virtue lies in searching for what we lack. And what humanity lacks, my friends, is courage. The courage to resist. The most agonizing paths require the fiercest courage. Knowing oneself requires courage. Knowing your fears, accepting your mortality, and hearing the naked truth requires courage. Courage is the sole force that can balance our fears and our lust for power. Courage is no stranger to us. We know its face from afar, and we have shared moments with it. But courage loves virtue. It loves honor and wisdom. That is why Don Quixote rides on, even when ridiculed by the world. Because sometimes to face the darkness, you need a little bit of beautiful madness by your side.